Our first guest tonight is a former wrestler with 3 Guardians of the Galaxy.
He was built like a warrior, muscles carved from struggle, tattoos telling stories of pain and pride. But behind the glare of the spotlight, there was once a man who had nothing. No fame, no hope, no home. Before the bright lights of Marvel, before the cameras and red carpets, Dave Bautista was just a bouncer trying to survive on the streets of Washington, D.C. A man fighting not for glory, but for food, for respect, for a chance. Years later, he would stand among Hollywood's elite, not as a superhero, but as an artist with depth, humility, and fire in his eyes. So how did a broken fighter from the wrestling ring become one of Hollywood's most respected actors? This is the untold story of Dave Bautista, a man who turned his scars into strength. Before he was Drax the Destroyer, he was just David Michael Bautista Jr., a quiet boy from Washington, D.C., growing up in a world that didn't believe in second chances. Born to a Filipino father who worked as a hairdresser and a Greek-American mother, Dave's early life was marked by chaos and survival. His parents separated when he was young, and the streets around him were rough. Poverty, crime, and violence shaped the rhythm of his childhood. He's spoken about watching people get hurt outside his window, about stealing cars just to keep food on the table. At 13, he had already seen more darkness than most adults ever would. Yet, through the noise of that world, there was something unbreakable in him. A quiet resolve to become more than his surroundings. "I was lost," he would later admit, "but I always knew I could fight my way out." And that fight, born not in the ring, but in the chaos of his youth, would one day define the man he became. By his late 20s, Dave Bautista had hit rock bottom. He was broke, divorced, and desperate for direction. The only thing he had left was his body, his discipline, and his will to fight. So he walked into a wrestling gym. At first they laughed. He was older than most rookies, and the business was brutal. But pain didn't scare him anymore. Pain was familiar. It was home. He trained for years, bruised and overlooked, until the day he earned a spot in WWE's Evolution, alongside legends like Triple H and Ric Flair. Suddenly, the man who once guarded nightclub doors was standing in arenas filled with thousands, his name echoing through the crowd. Bautista! With his signature powerbomb and silent intensity, he became a 6-time world champion, a symbol of dominance and respect. But even then, under the spotlight and the roar, something inside him whispered, "There has to be more." That whisper would lead him beyond the ring, to the biggest gamble of his life: Hollywood. When Dave Bautista left the WWE, most people thought he was crazy. He was at the top. Millions in merchandise, sold-out arenas, a household name. But he walked away, because fame meant nothing if it didn't feel real. Hollywood didn't welcome him with open arms. Casting directors saw only muscles, not potential. He was told to play the bodyguard, the thug, the silent extra, never the man with a story to tell. But Bautista wasn't chasing comfort. He was chasing art. Then came Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014. When he auditioned for the role of Drax, he poured every ounce of pain, discipline, and humanity into the character. The result was electric. Audiences expected a brute. They got vulnerability, timing, and heart. Behind Drax's humor and scars was a soul the world could finally see. Suddenly, Dave Bautista wasn't just a former wrestler. He was an actor. Critics praised his emotional range. Directors took notice. Denis Villeneuve cast him in Blade Runner 2049, where he delivered one of the most haunting performances of the decade, with only a few lines. He then conquered Dune, Glass Onion, and Knock at the Cabin, each role proving he wasn't chasing stardom, but substance. While others fought for fame, Bautista fought for authenticity. He didn't need to be the loudest in the room. He became the one people listened to in silence. At last, the fighter from the streets had reached the peak. Not through spectacle, but through soul. Success brought spotlight, and the spotlight brought judgment. As Bautista's fame grew, so did the comparisons. "He's just another wrestler trying to act," critics said. They compared him to The Rock, to John Cena, to anyone but himself. But Bautista didn't want to be the biggest star in the room. He wanted to be the most honest. And honesty in Hollywood is dangerous. He rejected blockbuster offers he didn't believe in. He called out studios for prioritizing profit over passion. He even spoke publicly about creative frustration inside the Marvel franchise. An act that shocked fans but revealed something deeper. Bautista was an artist, not a product. Yet behind that courage was a quieter struggle. He battled anxiety, depression, and the emptiness of fame. Despite the success, he often felt unseen, misunderstood as just a wall of muscle. He once said, "People look at me and see strength. What they don't see is how much it hurts to keep proving I'm more than that." And while his co-stars soared into superstardom, Bautista kept grinding, waiting for the world to see what he already knew, that his best work hadn't even begun. It wasn't scandal in the tabloid sense. There were no arrests, no betrayals, no meltdowns. His scandal was deeper, a man daring to stay real in an industry built on illusion. And that made him both admired and feared. Somewhere between fame and fatigue, Dave Bautista rediscovered his purpose. He realized that power isn't about dominance. It's about empathy. So he began choosing roles that scared him, roles that demanded vulnerability. In My Spy, he showed warmth and humor. In Knock at the Cabin, he delivered a performance so hauntingly human that critics called it the finest of his career. The fighter had become a storyteller. Off-screen, he dedicated himself to causes close to his heart. Animal rights, veterans, charities, and mentorship for young fighters who had lost their way. He spoke openly about mental health, reminding fans that even giants carry invisible scars. In the silence between fame and reflection, Bautista found peace. No longer chasing validation, he built a legacy defined by authenticity. He wasn't the next Rock or the next action hero. He was Dave Bautista, a man who had fought every battle and finally learned how to stand still. From the chaos of Washington, D.C. streets to the grand stages of Hollywood, Dave Bautista's journey is proof that strength is not built in the gym. It's forged in the moments you refuse to give up. He redefined what it means to be a tough guy, trading violence for vulnerability, fame for truth. Every scar became a symbol, every failure a foundation. And in doing so, he became something Hollywood rarely sees. A man whose silence speaks louder than applause. "I'm not chasing superstardom," he once said. "I just want to tell stories that mean something." And maybe that's why his story means so much to us, because in the end, Dave Bautista reminds us that the greatest victories aren't won in the ring, they're won in the heart. If you believe in second chances, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.